Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, the Barkeep, and tonight we are going to be doing podcast number 3. Tonight's question comes from one of my commenters named Matt Moton. And I apologize, Matt, if I pronounce your name wrong right there. I'm just really horrible with names. But Matt wanted me to go ahead tonight discuss my top 5 favorite Red Rangers and top 5 worst Red Rangers. Now, in an effort to kind of rejigger these videos and these podcasts, I've been told I should probably do a little bit less on the time. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to do tonight the 5 best Red Rangers. And then later on, I'm going to go ahead and do the 5 worst Red Rangers. So it'll probably be the same length as the last video, just split over into 2 videos and maybe about a week difference. But yeah, so tonight we're going to go ahead and talk about the Red Rangers. And I just want to say in general, the Red Ranger is the key to the show. He or she in some cases is the primary character, is the one that everybody follows. And, anytime you talk about your favorite Rangers, 9 times out of 10, I always hear somebody say Red Ranger is their favorite. And I'll go ahead and kind of explain, why these Red Rangers are my favorites. They're not necessarily my favorites on the team. But yeah, let's start. Now, I'm not going in any particular order, so the first one I mentioned is not going to be the best or the worst of the 5 or anything like that. And it did take me a while to kind of narrow down the ones I want to talk about. And just to kind of clarify, these are not the best Red Rangers of them all. This is really my personal opinion on Red Rangers that, I like to watch when they're on screen. These are Red Rangers that I would like to, maybe hang out with, or these are the ones I want to lead a team of Power Rangers, and all that. So again, just my opinion on what I like and what appeals to me. And I'm going to go ahead and start here. This may be an unusual choice for some people, but one of the Red Rangers I really like is Mac Hartford from Operation Overdrive. Now, as I said in my last video, a lot of people don't like Operation Overdrive, and I don't really see it right here. But one of the things that I really like about Operation Overdrive are the characters, and specifically the Rangers. With the exception of 1 or 2 on the team, I think they all have really great personalities. And I think Mac is a good leader for a team. Not the best leader of a Power Rangers team ever. Let's be honest, what he kind of faced was nothing compared to, say, what Andros or Cole or any of those other guys it basically faced. I mean, it was still a threat, but I wouldn't put him up to par as one of the great Power Ranger leaders. Nevertheless, I did like his character. And, the first thing we're introduced to about him in the first episode is that he's a dreamer, he wants to be an adventurer, and he wants to spend time with his father, which are 3 really great qualities, I think, to put into a character, particularly one if you want to have as the main focus of a Ranger team, and to be a role model, for the younger kids that are watching the show. It's just great that we have a character who all he wants to do is go out on adventures with his father. And I can relate to that in a lot of different ways. Mac is trapped in the mansion, essentially. I don't think that is mentioned or noticed that he ever left the grounds within the 2 years he was alive. And again, like last video, this is spoiler territory right here. So Mac is a robot. He is only 2 years old at the time that we meet him by the first episode. So when we first see him, I guess he would be a shut-in, or he's just really sheltered by his father. His father does look at him more as a treasure, not to use that as a pun or anything. Looks at him as a treasure to be kept safe, not necessarily as his own person. Which is kind of great about his father, because he does go through that journey of learning the greater value of his son. And beginning, at the episode, the first episode, we get all these great qualities about him. And what I love is he doesn't necessarily want to bear himself. He just wants to go out into the world, see new places, do new things, have fun, and get be with his father, who's never really around because of all the things that he's doing. And that's just great out of this character. And when he finds out that, his father's going to lead this team of rangers and go on this adventure and all that, he's like, why can't I come along? And it's not in a complaining, you never let me do anything type of way. This is just somebody who genuinely wants to go out, do something great, and just be closer to his father. And really being a ranger and in this situation does help him. Now, kind of in broad strokes right here, because it's been a while since I've seen Operation Overdrive in its entirety, but a lot of the episodes do stick out with me. And one of the things about Mac that's also good is that he really has the never give up type of spirit to him. When we get to Once a Ranger and all the Rangers lose their power and they're replaced by Adam and the others, he's the only one that doesn't give up. And the thing I like about this is that, all the other Rangers go back to their normal lives. They're like, okay, this is the end. Our contract's over. There's nothing else to go ahead and do. Mac really has no place to go, because that's where he lives. But he's like, you know what? I'm just going to sweep the floors. I got to help out in some way. He wants to be involved. He wants to be helpful to these guys. And, again, just that never quit mentality. Because there are a lot of people that would be like the other Rangers. Like, okay, so I'm done. What else am I going to do? I'm not going to hang around the office anymore. I'm just going to go home, find a better job, whatever those circumstances may be. And it's really admirable in him. And I guess that attests to his age, because he's only 2 years old. Whatever memories of a childhood he has are obviously programmed. But whatever Hartford did program into him is some genuinely good stuff. And I love how he also forms connections on the team. With the exception of maybe Rose, I'd have to go back and see a couple of episodes of their interaction, but I always see him interacting with Dax, with Tyzon. I'll get to that here in a minute, and Ronnie. Definitely with Ronnie, there's this brother-sister relationship going on. And I think Ronnie was supposed to be the youngest of the team, other than Mac himself, technically. So I guess he was definitely trying to be a big brother to her, and I really like that. More specifically, he definitely has a good, quote, heart. Again, he's still a robot at this point, so I don't know how to phrase that. I like how he can see past things, how he can look into other people and see the good that's in them. He never hates. That's the one thing. He never hates. And that's why he befriends Tyzon. He looks at this reptilian warrior that Tyzon has become. He knows there's something else in there that he can be redeemed. And I always love characters that try to find redemption in other characters, whether they be fallen off the wrong path or just born evil. I guess I just like how they kind of how they fall into that. And the whole reveal with him being a robot. That was awesome because you don't see it coming. In retrospect, there are little lines here and there. Like, there's the Halloween episode that was before that where he dresses up like a robot and Hartford is, freaking out. I didn't realize what that meant until Things Not Said when we found out he is a robot. And even going back to the very first episode, Spencer says that he modified the genetic recombinator, whatever that device was, especially for Mac. When now, once Things Not Said appears, it's like, oh, it did nothing. That's what he meant. It's like, it's not going to do anything for him, so there are no special modifications. So obviously they had it planned out. They didn't really play it up in the first half of the series. They didn't make a real mention to it or anything. And I thought it was okay. I didn't really have a problem, but again, was shocked. And then he goes into this whole new character arc. And I like that because at this point, a lot of the focus was on the other characters. It was on Dax and his relationship to to Camdor and I think Miratrix. I know that name is wrong, but to those two characters, Rose and her intelligence, and we got a lot of Tyzon stuff in there after a while. So it was nice to kind of like get back to him after focusing on these other characters and come up with this new story to almost reinvent his character. And I will also say right here, I love the pun on his name because most people he's named Mac for the Mac truck, and he drives the big truck Zor, and I was like, okay, that's funny. But then when he's a robot, everybody's like, oh, it's iMac. And I was like, okay, so it just works on both levels. I just find that a lot of fun. But just to go ahead and kind of wrap up Mac right here, I guess I haven't said too much, but again, it's just the soul of this character that I like, the interactions he has, and I love his character arc from wanting to go on these adventures, finding out he has a robot, and really going through the journey of, do I have a soul? Am I a real boy? I don't really like the ending where he does become human. I thought the self-sacrifice thing was great. It would have been fine if they killed him off, or if they could have rebuilt him, but I didn't like him becoming a real human. That just didn't do anything for me. It was a little contrived, I guess. And then finally, the ending of him going on adventures with his father realizing that he's not something he needs to lock away in the house, that he is a real person now. And he realized this even before he became human, that all he ever tried to do was protect Mac, and that just never helped him. That being a ranger helped him grow as a person and really helped them grow together as father and son. So yeah, Mac is definitely one of my favorites. The next guy I have on my list right here, and this is probably another surprise to some people and all that, but again, I am going on the fact that I like watching these characters and they just have interesting stories, and that's Cole Evans of Power Rangers Wild Force. Now at this point in Power Rangers, it was kind of becoming a trend of a rookie Red Ranger. Before that we had Wes. Now we have Cole, and I think long before that there was Andros, but that was really just he was introduced in there. And at the beginning he was a little bit off, he was a little bit weird, but I like his story, and his story explains who he is. Again, just like Mac, he has this naivete about him. He looks for good in all people. Even the orcs, he attempts to find the better parts of them. Tries to find a soul. And in the second episode, he tried to find a heart within a barbed wire orc, but could never go ahead and find that. But he is the eternal optimist. He's had so much go wrong in his life, up to being a ranger, and even after, that you would think he would just be kind of in a, self-pity, emo kind of state, I guess, which you wouldn't blame him if he did, but I just love how he is able to stay optimistic about everything and just, truck on through, I guess, for lack of a better term here. And his story is really great, and I love how it is tied into the villain. The villain was jealous of his parents. The mere existence of Cole is what ticks him off. That could have been his son, but it was the road not taken. And it's also when we talk about Master Org and killing his parents and everything, he thought he had done the job, but then a generation later, here comes the son to avenge his parents. And what I like about Cole in this whole relationship with Master Org is that, first of all, he looks for redemption in him. He knows he was human. He knows he was good and had been corrupted. And then he spares his life. Cole has the opportunity to kill Master Org when he's lost his powers, when he's essentially become human again, but he decides to spare his life. Now, that does lead to far more problems down the line, but Cole still believes that there is good in him. Ultimately, he does have to kill him. He has become such a threat, such a monster, that there's no way he can ever go back to the way he was. And I think Cole realized that and did what he had to do, basically. And when he finds out that his parents are dead, he doesn't know that Dr. Adler or Master Rourke had done that before. And that's really tragic for this character because it's like, they're dead, that's it. And there's no resurrection at the end of the series. There's no, he meets the ghost of his parents and all that. They are just dead. He never knew them. And wow, it's just like, yeah, I could not imagine being in that position, where your life's goal is to, find your family, find out where you come from, your roots, your origin. And then you one day like, aha, there they are, and there's nothing I can do about it. So again, it's really sad and tragic for Cole, but it does help build his character because he does get a little bit more serious towards the end, a little less happy-go-lucky as before. But it was really great. And I think the best part of Cole, and I think this is something that really needs to be instilled in more people, and I don't mean necessarily in characters in fiction, but I think this is something that everyday people in real life need to learn to do, and that is forgiveness. Cole has gone through one of the greatest losses you can have in life, losing both his parents, never really having a childhood with a loving family. I mean, yeah, he has the natives that took care of him and everything. And then he comes face to face with the man who killed his parents, and he decides two things. One, he decides to spare his life. As I said before, decides not to kill him. And when all is said and done, when Cole has gone through all this pain that he's caused to his family, he's caused to the other Rangers, his new family, killed the Wild Zords, everything that had happened, what does Cole do at the end? He forgives Dr. Adler. I believe the last scene of him at Wild Forest is him leaving flowers on Adler's grave and forgiving him for everything that he had done. And I think that's just very powerful for any character, especially one like Cole and everything that he went through. So, Cole is just, I think, the epitome of what characters should be as far as, again, the optimism, the looking for the good in people, and offering forgiveness. I just think that's a quality that's lacking in the real world. And I think we can all go ahead and take Cole as an example for that. Well, moving on to my next one right here. Now, this is kind of a cheat, I guess some people would say. I know there's this big debate out there and stuff, but I really do want to go ahead and talk about this guy, and that's Eric Myers, the Quantum Ranger from Time Force. Now, and again, I know the debate, he's not really a Red Ranger, but you know what? He's in Forever Red. His color is red, so you know what? I'm going to talk about him because I want to, and it's my show. So Eric is a character who's really rough around the edges. This was something that we did not see in Rangers up to that point, and I'm not even really sure if we've seen this kind of since then. But beforehand, whenever we see a Ranger, some sort of antagonist, he's under a spell. He is misled about something. It's not. The reason the Rangers act that way is not based on their past history and their interactions with other people. It's artificially created. Tommy's antagonism with the Rangers was artificially created by Rita. Eric's antagonism against Wes and the other Rangers is not artificially created. It is based on his experiences as a character and his wants and desires. And that, hands down, to me, makes him the most well-rounded character in Time Force. I know what I said about Frax last week, and I know there's a lot of things to be said about Jen, but I do think that Eric goes through the most change from the first time we see him up until the end of time, the last episode he's in. And there's even more character development in Reinforcements from the Future when he goes into Wild Force. And, again, it's just that the best thing about him, and this is something, let me just kind of start here. I've noticed a trend in recent years with movies that our protagonists are usually rich people, higher class society of people. And, I'm going to use an example here. Look at Knocked Up. Even though it has nothing to do with Power Rangers, our main female protagonist of that movie is from a, kind of a rich background. She has a really high-profile job. Her family's got a lot of money, huge house, and all that kind of stuff. And that's repeated in a lot of movies nowadays, is that we have a lot of those rich protagonist characters. And it's really hard to identify with those type of people because, I would call myself middle class, maybe lower middle class at some points in my life. My wife would go ahead and tell you we're just poor, despite I think that's not the case. But the thing about Eric and how this all ties in, I know I kind of went off right there, but how it ties into Eric is that we see how it is through his eyes. To be somebody who's from a poor background, who is poor, and one has to deal with those people. He has to deal with rich people like Wes. And I don't really remember what Wes is like before the start of the series, but Wes is probably like, those hoity-toity Alpha, Beta, Gamma fraternity type of guys you see at college and stuff. I could see him definitely being that character. And Eric just looking around him is like, this is not me. This is not what I want to be associated with. So he's in, because he's in prep school with Wes. I think that's where they meet. And then he just leaves because he can't stand to be in that world. And I forget the name of the episode, but it's when Alex comes back and Eric, for some spontaneous reason that's never explained, wants to quit the Silver Guardians, I think give up being the Quantum Ranger. But, I think this bird and little girl thing, brings them back to want to go ahead and do that. But what we see briefly in that is that he is still from a very poor neighborhood. He does live in, like, a ramshackle house. So he never escaped being poor, even though he's the Quantum Ranger, leader of the Silver Guardians. I guess Mr. Collins doesn't pay that much to these defenders. But in whatever case, his character is informed by his past, and he's somebody who I think is more of the common man than probably the other Rangers. Because if you look at the other Rangers as a whole, 4 of them are from the future, and we have no idea about their society and really who they are. And you got Wes, who's, the rich kid and all that kind of stuff, which honestly is a character we should hate, but we don't, because we cannot identify with him. And plus, it's always good when rich people give up their money. I always like that. But yeah, Eric is just a character that has a good backstory, that informs who he is and what he does. And I see that jealousy that he has for Wes and how he does wish that things could be different. And I also want to go ahead and point this out. For those of you who don't know, in the original End of Time, the last episode of Power Rangers, Eric was supposed to go ahead and die and then pass his morpher on to Wes. They changed it for whatever reason, and I'm glad they actually didn't kill him in that, because what they did with him, even in Forever Red and Reinforcements from Future, I just thought it was great to have him there, to keep him around. I forget where I was going with this. I apologize. This is what you get when you're unscripted. Let me talk about Reinforcements from the Future real quick, and this will be my last point about Eric. I love how we give him a relationship with Taylor. I don't know exactly what becomes of it because we never see him again after Forever Red, and we don't know what really became of that relationship. But, it's usually the Red Ranger and the Pink Ranger and all that kind of stuff. But I just love how, the Sixth Ranger from another team falls in love with the Yellow Ranger from another team. It was a genuine relationship. They had quiet moments together. They had a camaraderie about the Air Force and, I guess the Army or whatever it is that they serve and protect kind of mentality. And I think that was great with Eric. There are just a lot of things about this character. It's really hard to go ahead and articulate. And really, I think most people out there really like Eric. He's definitely a fan favorite. And I will also say I'm very curious to see how Daniel Southworth, and I think that, the guy who played Eric on Time Force will play Kenshi in Mortal Kombat Legacy. That's awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my last two, and I'm actually going to go ahead and do this in a combined one. It's really 1A, 1B kind of thing, and I think y'all see it coming from a mile away. And that's Tommy and Jason. I cannot say who's better than the other. There's Kirk and Picard. You have those two different captains. One's better here, one's better there. The thing about Tommy and Jason is that they really are equals on almost every level. And when the show started, everybody loved Jason. When Tommy came in, everybody loved Tommy. Then Jason left, and everybody loved Tommy again. And then Jason came back, and Jason's the Gold Ranger. This is awesome. These characters are just great to be together, and I think it's how identifiable they are to each other. And what I mean by that is, and I'm going to start with Tommy, is Tommy is the everyman. And I don't think that was ever really kind of played up in the series too much, but the thing about Tommy that's really interesting is that he doesn't want fame, doesn't want glory, anything. He's just kind of going through his motions a lot. And he gets stuck into the situation of being a ranger, but obviously accepts it and all that. But Tommy, unlike the other rangers, has a lot of flaws. Now, I know Zach is afraid of spiders, and Billy was afraid of fish for one episode and all that. But Tommy isn't the best at everything. Despite what the legend that is surrounding Tommy, 20 years after the fact, he wasn't always good at everything. I mean, in a football season, he tries to become a great football player, and he fails, and he fails, and he fails. Ultimately, he gets it, but he's really kind of working hard through that entire episode. And then in Mighty Morphin Mutants, or the Mutant Rangers, I forget the Mutant Rangers, I think it was that episode, he's got this forgetful thing. I know that was kind of invented to give him a reason not to be in the show as often because they were limited by the Sentai. He forgets Morpher, forgets Communicator and all that. But that just shows that he's an imperfect character, and those are the types of characters that are more real, basically. And that's like the interesting thing about Tommy. And of course, one more thing I'll say about Tommy before I move on to Jason right here is Tommy elevates himself to becoming better, and we see that throughout the progression of the series. Make no mistake, Tommy we meet in Green with Evil is not the same Tommy we see in Day of the Dino, because he's worked his way up there. And one of the great things about Tommy. Now, Jason, on the other hand, he is a little bit more bland. And I know the first season did have, they had these kind of two-dimensional personalities, which many of them kind of grew out of or expanded on. But Jason was just the leader. Jason was just Jason. And that's all you really needed to know about him. There isn't too much to go ahead and really say about his personality. I mean, he's the best role model of the group. He is the strongest. And he has the sense of what is right and wrong. And the Green with Evil series, once the Megazord's destroyed, once Zordon's been cut off, and everything's a mess, Command Center's destroyed, and all that kind of stuff. all the other Rangers really get depressed really quickly. And this is about the 4th episode in that part 4. But Jason was the one who's gone through the most strife through that entire ordeal at that point, because this is coming right off the episode where he was caught in the dark dimension, had to face Goldar without his Morpher, then had to face Tommy, one-on-one. But he never gave up. He was the linchpin, I think, to that original team. If Jason was not there, the others probably would have given up. And that's not nothing against the other Rangers, but you have to have somebody there who is your conscience to help you continue and do the right thing. And Jason was great at that. Now, to go ahead and just kind of wrap up this video right here, I think the most important aspect to talk about both Tommy and Jason is the quasi-rivalry they have between each other. Now, there are instances such as Gung Ho where it is motivated by competition. There are instances where it is artificial, such as with the Slippery Shark episode. But I think it's genuine. The best thing is that in Green with Evil Part 1, we had this competition against them before they become enemies, before they become Rangers. And here, pop quiz time, does anybody know who wins the fight from the first episode? Don't know, do you? It was a tie. Tommy and Jason tie. Which is not only great for the Green Ranger saga, but also for the rest of the series. Because it establishes right there within the first 5 minutes that Tommy and Jason are equals. That they are equally as good. One is not better than the other. Granted, Jason beat Tommy and broke the spell, but that's beside the point. As we've seen throughout the series, even when Tommy's losing his powers, Tommy becomes the White Ranger. They are both equals. They trust each other. They care for each other. They're fighting for the same goals. They're really like brothers. When we get to Zeo, and actually, no, this is before Zeo. In Green, I think it's Missing Green or Green No More, and I apologize for getting these episode titles mixed up, but hey, 800 episodes almost, and it's kind of hard to remember every single title. But in any case, right here, Jason is lamenting the fact that Tommy's not on the team, that he misses Tommy, and he's the one who feels responsible for not getting to the green candle. That's a little bit too much that he's putting on himself, but it's understandable that it's not a rivalry. That's why I call it quasi-rivalry, because he does want Tommy back. He wants to help him. And when we get to Zeo and Jason becomes the Gold Ranger and Tommy's kidnapped and where in the world is Zeo Ranger 5 and into King for a Day, excellent episode I might add. When we get to that, Jason, 4 years after the fact, is still lamenting that he couldn't help Tommy, that he had failed Tommy, and that things would have been different had he helped. And I love that. That's a line I always remember. Here they are. 4 years after the fact, they're swapped around. They have two completely different roles. Tommy's the leader. Jason is the guy who just came in with the temporary powers and all that kind of stuff. So even a role reversal, they still care about each other. And it was Tommy that picked Jason to be the Gold Ranger. So there was really no sense of competition. And of course, in the very next episode after he had become the Gold Ranger, what do? They're back to hanging out and sparring with each other. So it's really great brotherhood between those characters that really sells them for the show. And the last thing I'm going to go ahead and say about this is the Turbo movie. And yes, the Turbo movie was horrible. No doubts there. Having Jason there was great, but they could have done more with him. Maybe if they didn't have Kimberly in there, possibly. But essentially, I think my favorite scene from the movie is where Jason has been corrupted by Malagor, and Tommy's trying to get through to him, but Jason has him over a volcano, choking him by the neck, and seriously about to kill Tommy. And the line that Jason says is now I'm the one with the brains and the power. Now, you can take a look at that at many different angles and in a lot of different ways. But I do think that it is more evident of a respect for Tommy for what Jason is not, and also what Jason has lost. Apparently, Jason thinks that Tommy is the smarter one. And of course, at this point, Jason had lost his powers as the Gold Ranger at the end of the season. And so maybe he's lamenting the fact. I do think that whatever spell that he was under by Malagor obviously made him say what he did. Not really in that's really what Jason feels, but obviously a subconscious part of him that was brought out, much how I feel that the Zanaku mask did for Merrick. And I just kind of like that maybe that's a hidden respect of admiration or even envy that Jason still has left over from, Green with Evil or even from the Zeo season. So yeah. Well, I apologize if I've rambled on a little too much today. It's always hard to talk about the really good characters. I think it's a lot easier to talk about the bad characters. So for the next podcast I'm going to do, I am going to go ahead and pick the 5 worst Red Rangers, the ones I don't like at all. And as before, if you have a topic you'd like me to go ahead and talk about, or if your list of favorite Rangers differs from mine, please go into the comments section or go ahead and email me. My email address will be at the end of this video. And I will see you in a little bit with podcast number 4 of Worst Red Rangers. So thank you, good night, and the tavern is closed.